Our content is the leader's crucial task, nurturing potential leaders, the leader's crucial task, nurturing potential leaders. And I'll send you the notes right after the call. I sent everybody all 3 weeks. I think it was on Friday. And so if you need that again, just shoot me an email. But the leader's crucial task is nurturing potential leaders. Once you've identified potential leaders, you need to begin the work of building them into leaders so they can become their best. So you've got to identify them, but then after you identify them, you do have to work on them to help develop them. And I'm sure you can think of people in your life that have identified you as a leader and then have spent time trying to develop you and help you come along. Because we know this, nobody arrived being the leader they are today. Somebody helped them get there. He uses the acrostic BEST. So B is believe in them. E is encourage them. S is share with them. And T is trust them. And so as a leader that I'm trying to help to develop, I have to believe in them. I have to come alongside and encourage them. That means I have to speak to them words that will encourage them. I think a lot about what Joseph was saying is not just seeing the bad, but seeing the good and encourage them along the way, share with them, and then trust with them. All right, so things a leader must do to nurture potential leaders around them. Number one, choose a leadership model for yourself. As leaders, you and I are first responsible to finding good models for ourselves. So you have to be following somebody in order for people to be following you. So choose your model carefully, because whoever you're copying is what's going to copy you, not just in your team, but also in your family and your children. They're going to copy whoever you're copying. So here's 6 questions that Maxwell gives on how to pick the right model for you to follow. Number 1, does my model's life deserve a following? Does my model's life deserve a following? Number 2, does my model's life have a following? So the first question is his character. Should I be following this man? The second question is there anyone already following him? Am I risking everything being the first follower, or is there people already following him so he's got credibility? Number 3, what is the main strength that influences others to follow my model? What are the things in his life? What are the strengths that I need to be duplicating from his life? Does my model produce other leaders? If he's not producing other leaders, do I really think he's going to make me a leader? Next question, is my model's strength reproducible in my life? Is my model's strength reproducible in my life? Oftentimes what we reproduce is the weaknesses, not the strengths. And so we've got to be very careful when you're looking at someone that we're not copying their weaknesses, but we're copying their strengths instead. If my model's strength is reproducible in my life, what steps must I take to develop and demonstrate that strength? How do I copy those things in such a way that I demonstrate that strength? So I think the easiest person to look at first is our CEO, and you start going through this list. Does he deserve a following? I would say yes. Does he have a following? I would definitely say yes. And so then you start asking yourself the questions, what are the main strengths that he has that you need to copy? Does he produce leaders? I would say yes to that. Is my model strength reproducible in my life? So now you're looking inward. What strengths does our CEO have that need to be reproduced in your life? And then that leads to the last one. How do we begin to put steps into place to demonstrate those strengths? And how do you judge yourself often to make sure you're demonstrating those strengths? The easiest place to look is the 8 steps. And I think he's given a pretty clear model in that. And so you can constantly grade yourself and judge yourself to see, all right, how well am I doing at reproducing this? Because the truth of a leader is people are going to copy whatever you're copying from the person you're following. So if you don't like what you're reproducing, you need to look at what you're copying and how well you're copying it. So number 1 was choose a leadership model for yourself. Then number 2, he said guidelines for mentoring relationships. When you find someone who you can personally mentor you, use these guidelines to help develop a positive mentoring relationship. It's interesting in the chapter, he's talking about you mentoring other people, but he spends more talking about you being mentored by somebody, because I think it's more important for you to be mentored than it is for you to be mentoring other people. Because if you're being mentored, you mentoring other people becomes natural. But if you're more focused on you mentoring people and you're not focused on you getting mentored, I don't think you have the resources to mentor other people. A lot of times what we teach in ministry is the way that a minister is supposed to help other people is almost imagine if you've got a garden and he's trying to water the garden. The way that he does that is he carries a bucket and there's a hose that's pouring into the bucket, which is himself, and he's watering the garden by the overflow, not by the hose. And so they teach us the first place you go is you get your strength, and then your overflow fills everybody else up. And so you as a leader, the first place you go is you get your strength, and your overflow mentors everybody else. So he gives us guidelines to how to have a correct relationship with your mentor. Number one, ask the right questions. Ask your mentor the right questions. There should be a little bit of time each week where you sit down and you think about what are the questions I should be asking my mentor? What are the questions you should be asking our CEO this week? A lot of times what happens is we don't think about it, and then in the moment, it's like the deer in the headlights, and we just ask the first thing that pops in our mind, and then that's not even a question we needed. So you got to take some time and think about what are the questions that I need to ask. Number two, clarify your level of expectation. Clarify your level of expectation of what you're expecting from the mentor, and then clarify what he's expecting of you. Number three, accept a subordinate learning position. Don't let your ego get in the way of learning. Don't let your ego block you from learning and from growing. Number four, respect the mentor, but don't idolize him. Respect the mentor, but don't idolize him. What happens a lot of times, Maxwell explains, is we expect our mentors to be perfect, and then when we find out they're not, it destroys us. Your mentor's never going to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect as a mentor. So don't idolize them, but respect them. Next, immediately put into effect what you're learning. So when your mentor tells you something, when our CEO tells you something, try your best to implement it immediately. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the harder it is to implement. Be disciplined in relating to the mentor. Be disciplined in relating to the mentor. Look for ways to relate to them. Reward your mentor with your own progress. So the way that you tell your mentor success is through your progress. And don't ever threaten to give up. Don't threaten to give up on your mentor or yourself. Keep pushing forward. All right, so number one, we talked about choosing leadership model. Number two was guidelines for mentoring relationships. Number three is building trust. Trust implies accountability, predictability, and reliability. More than anything, followers want to believe in and trust as their leaders. More than they want to know how good you are, they want to trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, that you're going to be predictable and you're going to be reliable. Trust is built day by day, and it calls for consistency. Some of the ways that a leader can portray trust are they can break promises, gossip, withhold information, being two-faced. And the scariest part I think about this is it may not even be true, but if the person that you're trying to mentor feels that way, it destroys your relationship. My pastor often tells me, don't let your good be evil spoken of. He says, don't let your good be evil spoken of. He says, so you have to think not just of what you're doing, but I've got to make sure I'm doing it in a way that benefits other people, and it doesn't allow someone to speak evil of the good that I'm trying to do. He gives us another acrostic. Trust stands for T is time. Take time to listen and give feedback on their performance. R is respect. Give the potential leader respect, and he will return it with trust. U is unconditional positive regard. Show acceptance of the person. S is sensitivity. Anticipate the feelings and the needs of the potential leader. And then T is touch. Give encouragement. And so go through these things. Spend time with them. Give them respect. Be unconditional in your positivity towards them. Whether they had a bad week or a good week, they're still your person. Sensitivity, anticipate their feelings and needs, pay attention to what they're feeling, and then touch, give them encouragement. Number 4 is show transparency. They say one of the most valuable traits of top executives is that they were willing to admit their mistakes and accept the consequences rather than trying to blame others. They simply just accepted when they messed up. And transparency seems to go a long way. Number 5, offer time. Make it a priority to stay in touch with your leaders. Time spent with a potential leader is an investment. I think this ties right into what Paul was saying, because if you are giving your time to the wrong people, then you're taking your time from the right people. So you have to make it a priority to stay in touch with your leaders. And if you're letting the wrong people swallow up your time, you can't offer your time to the right people. Number 6 is believe in people. When you believe in people, you motivate them and release their potential. Examinations merely gauge, but expectations promote progress. Number 7, give encouragement. Number 8, exhibit consistency. Number 9, hold hope high. People will continue working and struggling and trying if they just have hope. Maintaining hope comes from seeing the potential in every situation and staying positive despite the circumstances. Number 10, add significance. He gives a project. He says, ask yourself this question. If I had blank, I would blank. So if I had $1 million, I would do this. Or if I had this job, I would do this. The idea is that anything that you had or anything that you wanted, what if you had it, what would you do? When people start acting on their dreams, it adds significance to their life. Number 11, provide security. Number 12, reward production. People rise to our level of expectations. So oftentimes, if we're not pleased with the people that are following us, it has to do with our expectation level of them. Number 13, establish a support system. And then number 14, discern and personalize the potential leader's journey. Select people whose philosophy of life is similar to yours. Choose people with potential you genuinely believe in. Determine what they need. Evaluate their progress constantly. Be committed, serious, and available to the people you mentor. So what he's saying is, look at the person you're choosing to mentor that you're trying to develop and have a plan of them arriving at a destination at some point. If you went today and you started paying a personal trainer, the first thing they do is going to do an assessment of you, where you at. They're going to figure out where you want to go, and then they're going to give you a plan to get there. That's the same responsibility you have to people you're developing. You do not have that responsibility to every person that comes across your table. You do not have that responsibility to every person that comes to your organization, because not every person in your organization wants to be mentored and developed. But the people that you've identified, the leaders you identified, it is your responsibility to figure out where they're at, where they want to go, and help give them a plan to get there, because they're your core key people. This may only be 3 or 4 people, but it's your responsibility because you're their mentor. All right, so let's turn the recording